So here's the thing about conscious discipline. Discipline isn't something we do to kids. It's something we help them to create inside themselves so they can have the resiliency to be able to go off and do the world. When I give them the conscious skills, it feels good to them. It feels respectful. It feels kind. It feels compassionate. It feels assertive, which says, my voice matters.
In this next episode, I get to interview Ginny Luther. She's a master instructor of conscious discipline. I know many of us by now have heard certain buzzwords like mindfulness, being present, and conscious living. In this episode with Ginny, we talk about raising kids consciously. This is something that our kids are getting to take advantage of as it's woven into their curriculum at school. And I was so excited to bring one of their instructors to you. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome, Ginny Luther, Master Conscious Discipline Instructor. I am so honored to have you in this space. So excited to share this information with my listeners. Thank you for being here.
I feel honored to be here.
So, the word consciousness, I feel, has become an incredible buzzword, and I'm so thankful for that. My intention, as I've shared on this on this platform, is I'm really on a mission to impact future generations to come. I'm doing this for the children. I'm doing it by way of the parents, specifically the moms. And one of the quotes that I just feel could not be more true is every woman who heals herself heals her children's children. And I know we're going to talk about raising conscious kids. And I want to start, before we delve into that, by talking about what is consciousness. And the fact of the matter is, before we can raise conscious kids, we have to first be conscious ourselves.
Right. So in my mind, with regard to what I teach with conscious discipline, it's really shifting from trying to discipline kids, us trying to discipline them, us trying to make them do what we think they should do, to helping them discipline themselves. But what that requires is us being aware of what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, that's going to influence or impact how we act. So for instance, if I'm unconscious in a moment when a child hits a sibling, I'm coming in and going, was that nice? We don't hit in this family. That is not what we do in this family. And that is not nice. Now, do you want your brother to love you when you grow up? You think he's going to love you when you hit him every time you want something? Okay, that's unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can hear is a sense of control, a sense of judgment, mostly judgment. And anytime you're judging, you can't love. So part of love creates awareness. To be able to love is a choice, and it requires awareness. So the conscious way to respond to a child hitting another child is something happened. You may not hit your brother. That's hurtful. And say to the brother, did you like it when she did that? He's got to reflect and say yes or no. So that's a conscious moment. Did I like that? No. When your sister wants your attention, tell her, tap me like this. And then I would move to the hitter, who's the aggressor, and consciously say, you wanted him to give you back the toy. When you want him to give you back the toy, say, please give me back my toy. That would be a conscious moment because I'm bringing awareness to the child's action, not judgment. I'm bringing awareness to the impact that they have on each other, not judgment. So consciousness has no judgment, no good judgment, no bad judgment. It has no judgment. It just is what it is in this moment.
It makes sense. There's so much there. And, this is such a learning opportunity for me, to be honest. If I'm getting completely vulnerable, living consciously is not something that comes naturally to me, not at all. The first scenario you played out is more likely the one that plays out in our home 90% of the time. Raising conscious children is something I've been working on. Thank God our kids are in Center Academy, where this is part of their curriculum. They're teaching me so much. But for me, the work has been, and I'm excited to talk about this, but in becoming conscious myself first and working that as a muscle so that I can go into those situations and not play out old programming. There's a
Mhm,
quote, a stat that 90% of us walk around unconscious most of
mhm,
the time. What does that mean? That means that we're not literally paying attention to what is in front of us. We're not being present, right? That's a big buzzword.
mhm,
When we're living unconsciously, we're literally, and I'm saying this so you can help delve deeper as the expert, you can explain this in such a better way than I can. We're literally playing out old programming that we've learned from our mothers, fathers, teachers, preachers, right? These most negative thoughts
mhm.
that okay,
Beliefs.
we're doing the dishes, but we're not really looking at the dishes. We're not thinking about the dishes. We're thinking about, oh my God, then I have to do this and this and this and this. That's living unconsciously. That is 100% for me personally as a mom, more my default. It takes work for me every single day to be in that conscious place. And that's what I want to help my listeners with this episode. You're such an expert at this. And how do we live consciously?
So first and foremost, that whole multitasking thing, somehow in our country, we believe that's a badge of courage. If you can do 5 things at
Right.
once and get it done, man, check. And really what
Hmm.
we've done is we've negated the moment. And anytime you negate the moment, you're in a should mode. And a should mode is the center of a should mode is I'm not enough in this moment unless this and gets done. So if you're in a not enough moment, then you can't be present with your children, and your children are not going to feel enough either, because your state, your inner state dictates their state. So until they're 8, we're constantly dictating their state. A little bit few years before that, but we co-regulate all the time. But when they're really young, we literally are the state we want them to become. So if we're unconscious, we're in 10 steps ahead of us, we're obviously not in the present, or we're ruminating about the past of what should be, or what should be to come, or what should have been. Then we're stuck. So you're stuck in this hamster wheel going nowhere, because you're expecting a different behavior when you can't be present to even see what's going on. It blinds you. It blinds you from what's really going on in a situation. So we see a child hit, and immediately we go back to that story of whatever we got, which is what you were talking about, the belief systems, because good girls don't hit, right? Good girls don't hit. Good mamas don't hit, right? And so what happens is we end up repeating the behavior because we're resisting the moment versus accepting the moment. So that's the critical piece. The critical piece is to accept the moment as it is, because it did happen. So if you say we don't hit in the house, well, you're lying, because it just happened. You know what I'm saying?
It's so true. Yeah, yeah.
You can't, it has happened. So now what? Shooting it
Mhm.
isn't going to change it. Moralizing it isn't going to change it. Dismissing it isn't going to change it. It just, none of that's going to change it.
Yeah, I go to a place of judgment. It's like, while I'm thinking I'm addressing them and being present with them and conscious with them and disciplining them, guiding them, I'm actually beating the crap out of myself in my head. How did I let my kids hit? What did I do wrong? I'm such a failure of a mother.
Right, because you take responsibility. So here's the thing about conscious discipline. Discipline isn't something we do to kids. It's something we help them to create inside themselves, so they can have the resiliency to be able to go off and do the world. If
Yeah.
you believe they should be happy all the time, that's a false reality too, because children were born with more emotions than happy. So they've got to have conflict. And I don't know too many people are happy in conflict. So no, they're not happy all the time. So to think that that's your job, you're setting yourself up for failure. First of all, it is a story that's getting triggered, and you've probably talked about that. So the stories come up because your brain gets wired. You're just a wired system of things that were told to you when you were younger. That's all, right?
Mhm.
The essence of everything we are is a story. Of everything we know and what we believe is a story. It's based on a story, and especially when you're really young. And children develop belief systems about good and bad, quote unquote, by the time they're 5 or 6. Okay.
Mm.
And that's well wired. It's in the foundation of everything that will come ahead of them. It doesn't mean you've ruined your kids, because you can always shift the rewiring system, but it just takes a lot longer. So the first thing I would do is, when you get triggered like that, is to take a deep breath. First of all, you've got to shut off the stress response that's being set off by that belief system of, uh-oh. So, uh-oh, you know, they're hitting,
Mm.
something must be wrong with me, is driving the autonomic nervous system to say fight or flight. So now you're going to control it versus stay connected to it. So the first thing I would do is take a deep breath and say, this moment is as it is. Take a deep breath with me. This moment is as it is. I have this moment. And children, believe it or not, until the age of 8, really don't project ahead or reflect on the past. They are truly just in the moment, which is why there's so much conflict. Because in the moment, their little brain says, well, I want that toy. So they just grab it. They don't pause, think that through. Now, if I take that toy, he might be upset. They don't, that's not what they do. They just go, oh, that's the toy I wanted. And they grab it. We assume they're being
Mhm.
little heathens, mean heathens, and something's wrong with them. And I haven't taught them well enough. And what's the matter with my child? Are they going to be a serial killer by the time they're 16? What's up? We just go through this whole thing in our head. And the truth is, they just wanted the toy.
Right. It's just about that, nothing else. No need to future trip.
Exactly. Or it's just about, I didn't like what you just did to me, so I'm going to hit you back.
Mhm.
It's just about the moment for them. And they don't
Yeah.
know what to do. They want to know what to do that is conscious, because when I give them the conscious skills, it feels good to them. It
Mm.
feels respectful. It feels kind. It feels compassionate. It feels assertive, which says, my voice matters.
Mhm. So you go into people's homes, and obviously you're in our children's school a lot. Um, and I want to talk about what that looks like. So, I like that we're talking about perhaps from like a mom's perspective. And I know we're going to talk more on this because I think that's really like the juice to take away from this is what can we do? What can we do? Because we have such the power and ability to shift our children's emotions based on how we sit in ours, right? Not that their emotions are a responsibility, but um, they're feelers. And, I want to talk a bit about what does it look like living in a family or in a school? How do these schools run when these children are being consciously raised? I talk a lot about, working on our mind and our mental status and how powerful that can be. And I think the future is so promising that these children at the ages of our youngest is in first grade. These children are being raised with concepts and tools that some of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s are just starting to hear about: breath work, meditation, HRV, living in our amygdala versus our frontal lobe and making executive decisions from a healthier place outside of fight or flight. So, you as an expert and as a master instructor, walk me through what is it like being in a school where the children are being raised consciously in their curriculum?
Well, first of all, it's a journey. Okay. So Sentner has a vision for this. And if, because it's such a journey, we're just learning as adults to learn to breathe and learning about stress response and learning that we can calm the stress, not with drugs and all this outside stuff from an internal space. We're just learning it. And I'm going to tell you, just with one little lesson, it doesn't happen. So
Mhm.
they're on the journey of learning it. The training that Layla's doing is incredible. But when you see a person, a teacher who truly has conscious discipline, it's not necessarily the Ginny Luther conscious discipline approach, but it is a way of being. And so the teacher the teacher is as much a part of the classroom as the children are. In other words, it's not teacher directed, it's child directed and teacher directed. The teacher's ultimately in charge, but everyone is engaged doing their part in making the learning process something that is with a goal of that everyone is helpful to everybody else. So helpfulness is the theme inside the classrooms, being in service. And this is all brain related, just so you know, it's all directly related to how the brain wires up for self-regulation and resilience. So, and the reason that's happening is because when we're born attached. We are born, the first separation is cutting that umbilical cord. But the reason we are attached is because we are a mammal that's born to be tribal. So we don't live alone. We don't live outside in tribes. We don't live in solitary confinement and come out smelling like a rose. It doesn't work that way. We can't survive without connection. So that's the first piece. And then there's the other piece, which is the I. So we come into this world as a unique individual, but we're a unique individual that wants to be a part of a tribe in a way that where your value is appreciated, not what you have, the stars or stickers you make, the timeout machine you have to go until you can make that. It's not that environment. So the environment is you feel it when you walk in the room. You feel a sense of peace, and you feel like the kids feel very empowered in their learning, and the teacher is running the show, but she's engaged and working with the kids, and she's a guider for your child's learning. So your child can take
Mhm.
more responsibility. And the goal is for every teacher there to do that. Some are doing better than others, but it's all our own journey. And again, it's based on, how well we do this is based on our past experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, that makes sense when you're talking about a classroom. And I'm thinking about like myself working on this as an adult that's just learning it, just like the teachers. I know you guys have been working on it for a few years. It takes time, right? But these are new concepts for us, in my generation, around our generation. These are not things that we were raised with. And I just find this information is so powerful. I'm so excited to bring this to my listeners because we're in a time where, thank God, more people are talking about our mental health. We know, especially as women, we are juggling way, way, way too many things. We're stressed out. We're designed to live in a tribal community. We're running the ship by ourselves. We have our career, our children, the home, like all the things that we're trying to do. How could we possibly live consciously? How could we possibly remain present and calm and living in a state that's not constantly in this fight or flight? But the reality is no matter what we have going on, you were talking about, the function of our brain. This is something that we can really access at any time. And I would love to talk about that. These are the tools that I know that you've shared with our children in the classroom. These are things that I can do amidst the chaos in our home. I can do in my car. I can do while I'm in a meeting, in a Zoom call. Like these are things I can access anytime.
Right. It's a matter of practicing it because you're retraining your brain. You really are. And sometimes what I do, and this happened to me last night, I started ruminating in the middle of the night, um, just about a couple of things. And so then I finally said, "Oh, Ginny, go back to the hallway." So I envision myself in my head in a hallway, and there are all these doors. And I open the door and I can allow something to come in or not. So this negative thought is asking to come in. And if I'm watching myself think negatively, because this is the goal, when you pause and you watch yourself think, because that's what self-regulation requires. It requires you watching you. Watch yourself act, watch yourself think, watch yourself feel. You're empowered to be able to change it. If you're not pausing for a second, taking a deep breath and go, wait a minute, I'm going to talk to myself. What am I thinking right now? What's going on in my brain right now? What can I tell my brain to calm myself down? So what you can say is, I got this. I'm safe. I've got this. I can do this. My kids and my family can do this. I don't have to do it all to be enough. For me, it was a lot. I used to say to myself, I am enough. I am enough. I am enough.
Mhm.
So there are affirmation statements that you can make and repeat over and over. So when I was doing this work, I had a mission statement, and it was a meditative statement that I say a lot to myself. This is just mine. I state it in a way that it is like, this is the truth. I am a powerful speaker, leader, author who inspires others to experience their self-worth with unconditional love. So that is my mission.
Mm.
That's my personal mission. And in my meditation or whatever, my breathing, I just think it over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually that kind of thing starts to manifest. Even if in the moment
Mhm.
it's not
Yep.
true, you're setting your brain up to manifest that. But I'm going to tell you, it takes practice. You're not going to breathe 3 times and be fine for the rest of the day. No, 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 no.
No.
You've got to, every time you sense, if there's a moment that you sense, oh gosh, upset's coming in, don't try to analyze it. Just take a deep breath and say, calm down, Jenny. You got this. Calm down. Then you can start thinking, is this a rational thought? Is this a helpful thought? Is this is this thought going to benefit me or not? Because truly, it's a story. It's nothing more than a story that you've made up.
Mhm.
The fact that you think that you should have it all handled and be the super mom, it's impossible. You can't do it. And I'm sure you said you're stressed out. You probably are all exhausted. Just
Right. Yeah.
exhausted. And at the end of the night, you don't even want to say goodnight. You just want to get your damn glass of wine and go sit in the bedroom by yourself. Don't even touch me.
And then the voices come in that are like, "How could you do this? How could you not be snuggling your children? You're a horrible mother."
Exactly. Well, once you read my book, you'll get a good sense. But
Yeah.
uh, but bottom line is, yeah, that's exactly what happens. But the only way it changes is, first of all, if you see yourself as a victim, it will not change.
Mm.
If you see yourself as this has happened to me, okay. And now I have some choice about what I want to do about that. I'm not going to wait for everybody else to change, right? The only person I can make change is me. I'm the only person. Nobody can make you change. You all know that. Just the whole mask thing, everything's been going on. We've had it mirrored in our face for the last 3 years. No one makes me do anything.
Yeah, it's true.
And children are picking that up, which is why they're more defiant. It's why they push the buttons more, they risk more. They say things that you never would have said when you were younger, because our culture's changing and they're watching a changed culture. So they're going to be different. They're just a reflection of the world. That's all that's happening.
Yeah. They're experiencing so much change. So just going back, you were talking about your dream in the hallway. So, in regards to us, working on ourselves so that we can be better for our children, what I think I'm hearing is these thoughts come in. We all have them. We all have them all day, every day. And what's really helpful to do is to almost remove ourselves from the inside, from experiencing them, from being stuck in them, and come out and watch them. Watch them and almost advise yourself the way that you would advise a friend going through the same thing, right?
Exactly. Now, when you're advising a friend, are you judging a friend?
No.
No. So the only way you can step back is to say, this thought is what it is. This action is what it is, it is what it is. Okay, now I have a choice. Okay, let's see. This is what I just did. Instead of, oh, you stupid idiot, you just take a deep breath, go, oops, okay, that didn't work.
Yeah.
That didn't turn out the way I wanted it
Try
to.
that again.
Yeah, try again. Take some more deep breaths before you respond.
It's so interesting because I feel like, and I hear you saying this is in the middle of the night for you. So I think for a lot of us and for kids too, the subconscious is so active in the middle of the night. And I'm someone who's in the past been afraid of public speaking. I had this incredible opportunity to speak on a stage a month or so ago. And I said yes. And I knew going into it that I would wake up in the night leading up to it and like, oh my God, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? And when I was conscious during the day, I made a decision. I was like, okay, these thoughts are going to come up. It's going to do me no help to think about the actual talk and like all the things that really, really don't matter. Like the thoughts of like, am I going to say the right things? Are they going to like me? What if they ask me questions that I can't answer? I made a decision that when those thoughts came up, that I was going to focus on doing whatever I needed to do to show up as the best version of myself. And I even decided to do that during the daytime when those things came up.
Good for
So
you.
at night, it was very easy for me to say, I mean, it took work, but it worked. In the night, I was like, the best thing for me to do right now is to sleep. So boop, I'm going to just like table that over here. I'll think about it during the day, but I'm not going to think about it right now. And then during the day, when the thoughts would come up, I was like, I can sit here and spiral, or I can do what's going to get me in the best state. Because if I'm a ball of stress when I go up there and I'm talking about empowering women, like that's not going to align. So I'm going to go ride my bike. I'm going to listen to a fun song. Like that was the work that I did. And it worked, but it took me coming out and being the observer to be able to realize that that's what I was doing.
Yeah, be the observer. That's see
Mhm.
yourself as observing yourself, okay? Because
Mhm.
if you think about it, now here's the real consciousness question. If there's two of you inside of you, you watching you, who's who? That's the philosophical question.
Yeah.
Is there a spiritual mind looking at you, your brain? Like, what is it? Now, that's a whole nother topic of
That's a
conversation,
whole
but
other rabbit hole, Ginny.
it's another rabbit hole. But the truth is you are watching you. You are having conversation with yourself all the time. Who is
Mhm.
watching you? If it's the true who you are, then why wouldn't you choose to want to see yourself lovingly in this moment?
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you
so
choose
true.
that? Because it's what you want to be and it is who you are.
Could we talk about for a little bit, like, when we go into those loops, because I think they're just really common, especially for us moms, like, what is going on from a neurological perspective? What's happening in our brain?
Basically what happens is your pathways for how you think and how you see things are developed very early. So the brain is just think of it as an electrical system. It's a wiring system. And the most powerful wiring in a system is the most insulated ones. So the insulated wires are the ones that are the fastest transmission. And how do they get insulated in your brain? It's myelination. And what happens is the more you experience, that becomes that belief system. So if every time you are with a dog, and a dog is mean to you, then after, the first few times you're like, dogs are mean. You've already made a belief system. So I'm just going to always approach a dog feeling anxious or angry or whatever. It's just an automatic. So it's a wiring kind of thing neurologically. And in conscious discipline, we describe the brain piece of it metaphorically. And metaphorically, I mean, we kind of separate things out when really the brain is a very integrated, differentiated, but integrated system. It's all working together at the same time, unless there are differentiated parts that are being severely affected, right? So, so what happens is if we're in our worst of the worst, which is you're not even watching yourself, man. You have just reacted and you've done something really stupid. You've spanked your kids, you've screamed at the top of your lungs, in my case, I threw my child in a snowbank once. Um, you've just done these very reactive things. You're in a survival state, which is, basically I'm not even thinking. I'm blind to everything. I'm just feeling like I'm going to die right now if I don't kill first, right? So, uh, so you're not conscious. There's no consciousness whatsoever. The emotional brain starts to develop when kids are around 14, 15 months. They move from pleasant to unpleasant to now sad and angry. And those are all emotions that we're born with. And, fear, sadness, anger, happy are the basic ones. And your children run through a range of those when they explore the world, and it either goes their way or it doesn't go their way. And when it doesn't go their way, then they're going to say, no, they're going to defy or me or mine. All of that's part of the autonomic nervous system, but it's because they want it to go a certain way. Okay. So your emotions are your guidance. We shy away from the worst emotions. We shy away from grief. Grief's a little bit different, but we shy away from sadness. We shy away from all the negative feelings except for happy and calm. Those are the two we accept as a culture, our culture. Okay. But the rest of them we're trying to resist all the time. So you're literally resisting a signaling system in your brain that says, pay attention, watch what you're thinking, watch what you're feeling, watch what you're doing, because what's going on right now isn't working for you.
Mhm. So
So if
true.
you're
Yeah.
right, so it's a signaling system. Now, if you were told as a child that signaling system is all wrong, the only thing you should ever be is happy or
Mhm.
calm or in a surrender state, then you're really screwed. Essentially, you're screwed. because all you're going to feel is guilt because all those other feelings are wrong. So the only thing you're left with is guilt, and that's not shame and guilt are not true emotions. You were not born with shame or guilt. You weren't. So when you rely on those to guide you, can you see how you get stuck on the hamster wheel? You're never going to be enough. Shame and guilt are all around never being enough. Instead of saying, oh, hello, anger. Ooh, I don't like you, but here I am. You can sit
Mhm.
with me. So in the classrooms, we have feeling buddies and we have a corner, a calming corner or a Zen zone where they're supposed to go. And they're all still learning. And they're learning how to actually, through steps, how to self-regulate and really watch themselves and feel and think and be able to make a different choice. It's so brilliant because when we start doing it when they're 3, it's their foundation. So it just becomes automatic. So now 3-year-olds are going home and saying, Mommy, your face is going like this. You seem angry. Take a deep breath.
Yeah, my
And the
Kaya, I mean,
parents
she's
going,
6.
what are you talking about?
Mhm.
You breathe. I don't want to breathe. Right. So, yeah, your 6-year-old has come home and said stuff.
Yeah, she does breathing exercises for me, with me. She holds out her little hand, "Mommy, let's sit, let's breathe." Just breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. She, like, walks me through it. "Let's sit down, Mommy, let's have a breath. There's a
Because
lot going on."
she senses your feeling. And so kids are
Yeah,
all,
she can
again,
tell when I'm, like,
because you're
chaos, yeah.
co-regulating, right? You're co-regulating. She senses your feeling. And when you feel anxious, she feels anxious because you're the one that she wants to feel safe with. And if you don't feel safe, then she doesn't feel safe. Does that make sense? But if you can breathe together. So I say, if you can't breathe, ask your kids to help you breathe. Ask them, see, could you just hold my hand and help me breathe right now? Because mommy is about to say something so hurtful and I don't want to, and I don't know what else to say.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's a beautiful
Um
thing.
It's a beautiful thing. I wanna walk back a minute. We were talking about, uh, the children in the classroom and going into, I know, what's called the Zen zone, and I think there's so much that, people, women in particular, I think a lot of us have grown up, whether it's from our teachers, preachers, parents, whatever, or self-inflicted, to judge these feelings of, like, anger, sadness, right? These, like, dark emotions as something wrong. So I'm so curious because I'm really big on inner child work. When you're working with, say, first grade classroom, and there's a little girl who's, expressing anger, what does that process look like? Because I almost feel like I wanna do it for myself next time I'm feeling angry and catch myself judging it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's first of all, what we do a lot is reflection. So reflection is mirror work, but I don't necessarily take a mirror, but what I do is mirror the child. So if the child is feeling angry, I might say, first of all, I'm just going to imitate their face and say, your face is going like this. You seem really, really mad. So I'm not saying you are, I'm not asking why, I'm not doing all that. All I'm doing is noticing her face. So you want to notice your upset state. So if you're in a hurry on the road, this is something you can do. And you're just like, oh, this traffic is driving me crazy. Take a minute and stop and go, okay, hello, frustration. Take some deep breaths. You're going to get there. You were hoping you would have left earlier so this January traffic wouldn't make you late. You
These are
got
things
this,
you're saying
Jenny.
out loud to yourself? Like,
You
this is
can
what you're
say it out loud. If you
Mhm.
talk it out loud, you're teaching your kids to do the same.
Yes, I do love doing that with them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're modeling for them how to regulate. So,
Mhm.
right now we teach kids at such young ages, they learn it so quickly, they're teaching their parents.
Yeah,
Which is
definitely.
brilliant. It's really brilliant.
Mhm.
But so the bottom line is you want to be in that space where you can reflect what's going on. And the signal is the emotion. So if you feel scared, what happens to your body? Suddenly adrenaline rushes through, your heart starts. And if you're aware of the body feeling of it, then you can label it a feeling. You can say, oh, this is anxious or this is scared. There's a difference. Anxious is more worried and it's more worry is about the future. Scared is more about safety and I'm going to die. They're just kind of cousins. They're cousins of each other. Anger is the message with anger is the world is not going my way and it's got to change now. Frustration is the world's not going my way. I need to change how I'm seeing it. Sad says I've experienced loss and I feel disconnected. I need to find comfort. The same with disappointment. It's all about loss. So I didn't get my turn, or the workshop didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, or I got at stage and I didn't
Mhm.
do it the way I wanted to do it. That's sadness. Happy says, whoa, this is good. I like this feeling. Keep doing the same thing. Right. But we can be too happy too. Sometimes we send kids to the safe place or the Zen zone to say, your body's a little too excited right now. Right. So take a deep breath, calm yourself down. Calm
Mhm.
is I am loved and all is well. Doesn't matter what comes my way right now. I feel loved. I am loved, and all is well no matter what happens. So those are the 8 we kind of work with: anger, frustration, scared, worried, sad, disappointed, happy, and calm. And we have faces. So we have the kids say, "Hello, sad. Your face is going like this. You seem sad." Facial will always indicate. Take a deep breath, breathe with me. I'm here for you. I will keep you safe. And the kids, the little ones really love this, but they go right for those. They come in and they go over to the Zen zone and they'll pick 1 or 2 feelings and they'll say, "This is how I feel today." And so we just have them talk to
Aw.
the feeling. That's them watching the feeling because they don't have a conversation going on in their head. They don't have that ability until
They
they're
don't
8.
have that second voice yet
No,
until
the
they're
plus
8?
side is they're always in the moment. The downside is they can't plan things. They got to rely on other people to guide them everywhere with visuals and different things like that. So the key would be is to start feeling the feeling. Allow the feeling to be there. Just notice it. If you're really pissed off and you have to go outside, march it out, man. Scream, do whatever you have to do and just allow yourself to feel it instead of resist it. Just let it be there. See what happens. Be curious about it
Mhm.
because it is what it is. With grief, it's way more intense. And I used to drive off in a parking lot in my car and just scream my head off, primal screams to release the anger and everything that I was feeling. And it was so helpful. It was just really helpful to do that. If you embrace it, it will pass. If you resist it, it stays and that turns into cancer.
Yeah, it does. It turns into disease.
The problem is most people walk around with guilt and they don't know what they're feeling because that's been there's a blanket has covered their feelings, their true feelings with guilt. So now it's a lot more difficult because you got to go, okay, I'm feeling really guilty. What's really underneath that? What's the feeling underneath that?
Yeah, because you were saying guilt and shame are not feelings. Those are blankets over feelings?
Yeah, they're designed to manipulate and judge. So they're designed to encourage children to surrender. And so how many of us walk around without our self-worth being valuable? We just think, "Oh my God, I don't want anyone to see me." Because if they really see me, and so we do all kinds of stuff to try to cover who we really are, from, Botoxing the hell out of our bodies to, you know, over exercising to buying just the right clothes to just say, "I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough." I don't know. I just think that's really exhausting.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think are some of like your workshops that you've taught at the school are so insightful. I feel like you could just flow with so many tools for my listeners. Where do you think is like a really good place to start for a parent that's interested in this information?
It's so hard to know exactly where to start. Just to begin to say, I'm willing. I'm willing to begin this journey and I'm willing to begin to see my stories and I'm willing to begin to calm myself. So I think the first thing is calming. I really do. I mean, first of all, you've got to connect with yourself too, Because if you're disconnected, like every negative thing you say about you is disconnecting yourself from yourself. You're disconnecting yourself from who you really want to be. And can you see that
Mhm.
inner turmoil leads to depression, anxiety, and all of that? Because all you're thinking about is how you're not enough, when the truth is that's a story. That's something somebody told you. You should feel bad about how you're acting right now. Look how you're making your mother feel. So the first thing is to start just noticing. I say the noticing, and then there's lots of ways. Like there's lots of product out there that you can at unconsciousdiscipline.com's website, from children's book that teach the 7 powers and the 7 skills, to a parenting book, to other books that are parallel to that, including mine, when it comes out. It's not out quite yet, but it's almost there. But it's just beginning the process, because it's like an onion. You just have to peel off layer after layer after layer after layer after layer. And the more you peel off all those layers and add new kinds of layers, you're never going to really quite get there, because it's a journey. It's a practice. It's all it is practice. And what I can tell you of over 35 years of doing this work, I'm more relaxed. I'm more calm when I find myself
Mhm.
thinking hyper thoughts, because that's my MO, or anxiety is my MO. I take some deep breaths. I said, Ginny, feel it. What's really going on? What is worry trying to tell you? What's it? What are you worried about? Is it really true? So I'm able to do those things more readily now. And you're so lucky because you're young and you can do it. I never started this
Yeah.
work until I was 42.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
41 and I'm just starting this work. My
Yeah,
kids are so lucky. They're 12, 10, and 6, and they're starting this work. Like, can you imagine? And
I
they have the
know.
ability to call me out.
Well, and they will do that. They'll say, "Mom, you have a choice. We can go here or here." So the idea
Yeah,
is
I
to
love it.
work on yourself first. So if you buy Becky's book, which is Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline, you can get it on Amazon for cheaper
Okay.
than Conscious Discipline. But that's the only book you can get on Amazon cheaper than ConsciousDiscipline.com. If you buy that book, it's the 7 powers and the 7 skills, and you can just start to read. And the first chapters are all about control, because if we
Mhm.
don't feel enough, the thing we're going to try to do is control either other people or control ourselves into a space of trying to be perfect so people will like us. Or we're going to control other
Yeah.
people so they don't get close enough to us to be able to do anything to us. So that's most people's MO. We're constantly trying to prove our enoughness.
Yeah, and control, and that's why a lot of people, I think, get so uncomfortable with change, right? With change and things that are unfamiliar. It's you lack this sense of control, and that shows up in workplaces and spaces. It shows up in families and relationships.
Everything. So here's the thing. That's why consciousness, people say, what is consciousness? Oh Lord, that is such a loaded question, because all I can say is it's a way of being, where you're accessing the highest s- places in your brain to be the best of who you can be, so that you can then be the best of who you want to be with your children. Here's one thing I want you all to know. My son said to me the other day, I just want to be the best dad ever. I said, you are the best dad ever. I said, because it's something you need to believe about yourself, not something to prove yourself to your children. Because the truth is, sweetheart, you are never going to control how they perceive you. No matter how good or bad you think you are, you will never control what their perception is about you.
That's so true. Wow, yeah.
It's powerful, and when you think about it, that just lets you off the hook. You can only be the person that you are in this moment, and hopefully your child will see the best in themselves in that moment, but there's no guarantee.
Yeah, and there's no control over it, right? We can't control how they feel about us. No matter what we do, they're gonna have stories about what we did or didn't do.
And a lot of parents say, "My job's to keep them happy." I'm firing you from that job. You can't do it. You cannot do it. So why
Beautiful.
would you exhaust yourself trying to make that happen? And if you have one or more children, you know this. You've got one that's got half the cup empty or half the cup full, and the other's it's half empty. And that's just the way they came in this world. And that's their journey. And you're like praying for one, and you're like, oh my gosh, we got a lot of work to do with this one.
So, in your opinion, what is our job as their parents?
We're guiders. We're helping them to see themselves and what their journey is. And in doing so, is to see, just to see, is that what you wanted? Is that what you didn't want? And provide limits. So within the limits, and then this is so important, the limits are so important to be consistent and predictable with them so that they know you are in charge, but you're there to guide them in the choices that they make within those limits.
Safety. That feels like
Yes, you
safety,
provide the
right?
safety with limits and like, no, we're not going outside. That it's not time to, or we are going to bed. It's time for bed. Not, are you ready for bed, sweetheart? Are you ready? No, it's time for bed. That's the limit. Do you want daddy to take you to bed or mommy? You want to brush your teeth first or you want to go pee on the potty? Which do you want to do first? Do you want to get your book bag ready now or after your bath? Like whatever it is, you are constantly, you want to hand the ball of responsibility constantly back at them. But that's the responsibility is being aware of your thoughts and your feelings and your actions so you can respond.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about limits because as there's more talk of, being present with our children and raising mindful children and not causing trauma or adversity in our children, it's like the limits and the rules have gone out the window and it's
I know
horrifying.
it's really a problem. And I'm, not, and I, for some reason, I still haven't quite figured it out why. I'm trying really pondering on this. But when people first learn that, oh, understanding my child helps them to understand themselves, that means because I understand the way they feel, all right, I'll let him stay up 5 minutes longer. No, it does not mean that.
Like boundaries are okay. Boundaries are
Boundaries
important.
are so necessary. The most incorrigible, I'm going to tell you this honestly, the most incorrigible children I ever see are the ones whose parents do not set boundaries with them. I would rather
Mhm.
have a strict child or a strict parent who doesn't listen to them than a child that has no boundaries.
Wow. And why is that?
Because boundaries are safety. They build predictability, and that's what we really need, right? We definitely need that. But if you think of like conscious discipline like a bowl of salad, the bowl is the safety. All the stuff you put in is the connections, the skill, the connection, the skill, the empathy, all, you're putting all that into the bowl. Well, if you don't have the bowl,
Then you don't have a salad.
you don't have a salad. You just have chaos. And we don't like chaos. There's no
Yeah.
certainty. There's no predictability. It's vitally important.
It's so refreshing. I was so afraid when I heard like about conscious discipline and that was going to be a piece of it. Like just letting these kids run the roost, letting them dictate how they live, just all the things. So I find it so beautiful the more I learn about it because it's really, in my mind, it's about self regulation, boundaries, safety, predictability. Um, Uncertainty is a part of our basic human needs, but so is certainty, like you just said.
Mhm. And so kids like it. I mean, it doesn't mean they're gonna say, I mean, you don't like paying taxes. Who here likes no one likes paying taxes, but we do it
Mhm.
because it's expected of us, number one. It's part of contribution. It's part of whatever we do to live in America. It's the rule. Of course, some people
Right.
don't pay taxes, but
Right. We got to do
that's
what
a
we
whole
got
other
to
subject. The caring system isn't there, but we do because we know that we care about each other. And right now, that's the little, mm, we're very
do. Mhm.
divided. We're not connected. And so people get really scared and do funky stuff, right? But bottom line
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
those two things are so important, connection and predictability. If you have connection without predictability, you have chaos. If you have predictability
Yeah.
without connection, you might not get so much compliance. You might get a lot of defiance. Yeah. Or shut down kids or guilty kids or shameful kids. Whereas if you don't have the predictability, you have entitled children.
I see that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Ginny, tell us a little bit about your book. I'm so excited for it to come out, and I want to have that a link to it in the show notes for my listeners. I'm really excited.
Okay. Well, I've been working on this for 13 years. It's called Blue Star Grit: A Mother's Journey of Triumph and Tragedy, Raising a Defiant Child into an Exceptional Leader. So that pretty much describes it, but it's the book. It's my journey with my son, who I really had a difficult time raising. And he ended up achieving amazing things, but then ended up getting killed. So it's the whole story. It's all told through stories, and they're all stories teach something about parenting using, without me saying specifically, conscious discipline. But it's really about me shifting from trying to control him to really changing myself and using
Mm.
connection to try to discipline versus control. But the stories are great, and it's fun. Dr. Bailey, who's the author of Conscious Discipline, has just read it, and she's raving about it. So I guess it is pretty good.
Mm.
But we'll see. I don't know the launch date yet, but you can go to ginnyluther.com to put your email in. And I'm just on the verge of getting my cover done and ready. So if you put your email in, then we'll make sure that you get the updates and when the released, pre-sales are and whatever offers that we offer so that you can get the book. But
It's so exciting. It's like a birth, right? When you
it
birth
is.
a book into the world, I imagine that's a really big thing.
It's a big deal, but everyone's going, when's your second book? I'm like, well, that's like asking a mother who's just about to give birth to a baby. When are you going to have your second one? Please don't ask me that right
Yeah.
now. Consciousdiscipline.com is another place to go. And if you go under shop, there's all kinds of stuff that you can get there. There's a book thing, and there's easy to love, difficult to discipline. There's managing the emotional mayhem. There's all kinds of products, the Schubert books, which you can read to your child while they learn. They've got them in school as well, at least in
Mm.
Centner. They all have some of this, and there's different products that you can get. But of course, if you don't know what they are, you need guidance with them. But that's another place to go.
Well, and instructors like you do coaching, right? You do coaching for parents, for families. You do
I
coaching for
do.
schools.
I do classes. I do coaching. I do family visits, transform schools. So I'm supposed to be retired, haha, because I retired from that company because I have my own company that I've had since before I met Dr. Bailey in 1996. It's called Peaceful Parenting, and it was my son that really helped me to change my career because I really realized this was going to be a big journey, and I needed to shift myself so I could help him shift from what I thought he would be a serial killer into being an amazing leader. So
Mm. I've heard you share his story, and I'm so glad that it's in your book. I highly recommend people grab it. I know you had, like many of us do, you had a couple children, and they were both very, very different. And so you had to figure out how to raise these two very different children. And I know you share some of the tragedy and challenges and loss as well with your son's passing. And I applaud you for being so vulnerable. I've heard you speak at the school sharing that story, and just really, I love your heart, Ginny. And I love that, living this way has helped you so much deal with his grief, and just inspired you to help other children. So you're just such a love, and I'm so thankful and blessed to have you in our lives. And now my listeners are as well.
well, thank you very much for having me. And I do this work with the same intention. So I want to change the world. I want us to stop wars.
You,
Essentially, it starts with kids, always.
it does. You are one person at a time. Well, thank you, Ginny, for being here. Much love.
To you too. I wish you well.
I hope from that episode with Ginny that you got a good foundation as to what conscious discipline is and isn't. And perhaps it piqued your curiosity and you want to check out some of the other resources. I would love to hear your comments on this video. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future episodes. And as always, if there's a friend in your life or a family member in your life that you think could benefit from this message, thank you for passing it along.